What up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty P, Shannon White here for a special edition of Steelers Global Perspective Live. It is a global perspective. I'm Matty P. I'm an Australian. I'm with Shannon White. He's an American. But this week, I'm traveling. I'm in Asia, a different part of Asia than Australia. So it is definitely the global perspective. We've got two people from the other sides of the world, like doing a virtual, awesome YouTube show in different countries. In my case, to what I usually am. Crazy times, crazy time zones. But Mr. White, how are you doing, my good friend?
Well, I'm doing awesome. And when you was telling me the time difference, and we always have the time difference, but it was exactly 12 hours. I said, well, that's really nice because it's easy to keep up with.
That's it. But it's harder as well because it's like it works in terms of what we're doing, but then it's really hard at the moment when I'm trying to keep up with all the Steelers news. But then it's kind of funny this week because the Steelers news, we had a lot of news to start the week if you count Sunday as the first day of the week, which technically it is. And then we evolve and we move to it being, all the stuff that happens over the weekend, the wheeling and dealing that's happened between the Sunday that, we find out that Russ has visited and likely signing all the way through to, by the time we get to the end of the week. And now we're at a point where they've got a couple of gaps, which we'll talk through a couple of key positions. And people are now thinking, are we trading for guys like Terry McLaurin and Brandon Ayuk? I knew the Brandon Ayuk thing. And it was funny because I hadn't seen the Terry thing and everything on social. I hadn't seen the Terry thing until yesterday. But when I briefly jumped into Twitter between my business meetings, a very hectic week at the moment, everyone kept saying Terry everywhere. And I'm like, who's Terry? But I think it's the first time we've had a chance to talk live since all the wheeling and dealing moves. And I've said this in a couple of comments for the subs. And I just want to, we've had a lot of subs join in the last week. So welcome to all of those.
Yes.
But I guess my question to you is there a move? Because I've said this to some people in the comment, like some of our great subs and other people who watch the show in the comments. Is there a move that you've liked the most? Just, it doesn't have to be because of the cost or the experience or the talent, but is there one move that you're just like, this tells me they're serious about making the play, not just making the playoffs, but a proper playoff run?
Well, as far as that they're serious about changing, whether it be the way they do roster construction, as we've talked about for years now, as Kevin Colbert got stuck in his ways towards the end of his tenure. To me, the Patrick Queen signing, that they went after the guy who was considered the number one guy at his position in free agency, and knowing that he was going to cost more, but they actually was able to sign him and set the market at a much lower cost. That shows how different that, in my opinion, that Khan is approaching this, and Waddle. They're approaching things the way we've been hoping they would. That gives us hope they'll trade up, they'll trade back, they'll use draft capital this year to acquire draft capital next year. Things that that they never happened.
Yeah.
And then you also have the opportunity to make trades on draft day. And then you have to give Khan so much credit because, we had talked about Wilson. We kind of knew last week that was a real possibility, that, he was going to come in and be the starter. But then after our show, then Pickett's traded.
Yep.
I was stunned. But then to turn around the next day, less than 24 hours, and complete the trade for Justin Fields, and for what they got him for, that just shows, as I said before in an article this week, to me, Omar Khan is controlled aggression. He's very aggressive, but he stays in control. He knew if he waited, the market would fully reveal itself. Because if he would have, like at the combine, everybody's like, it's got to happen during the combine. It's got to be a second round pick. All this stuff. And Khan's just like, well, we'll see. And he waited. And then he gets him for a 6th, conditional 4 if he plays enough snaps. But it's so refreshing, Matty, to see modern roster construction, and modern front office operations.
I know it just fills you with a bit of hope.
Yeah.
Like, it's quite funny, the forum platform that you and I came across. I remember early on in my days there, and I was once criticized for some of the crazy ideas and outside the box thinking I have sometimes, which I might replicate. And I think that it's I think the phrase was said to me, it's not Madden, Matty. And I was like, no, it's not Madden, but we don't have to do things like they were done in 1970. The draft is not the draft is not 15 rounds where you can find a bunch of guys. It's 7 rounds. Then there's UDFAs, right? There's a salary cap, which is very complex. Contracts are not what they were in sport anywhere in the world anymore. People do not honor contracts. It's not a thing. It's just not especially when you're in a league where you can make trades and all those things. So I just think for me, this approach of Omar Khan of we need to win now. We're going to make it happen. We're going to keep moving. And I think I said this to Marky D, who obviously I do TDU Boys show with every now and again on the channel. I said to him recently, I wonder, there's the Omar Khan piece, but there's the Andy Weidel piece as well, because some of this is very Howie Roseman-like.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Howie Roseman doesn't care about, he does, Omar Khan's the numbers wizard, but Howie Roseman trades, salary cap manipulation, tags, trade, he's not afraid to do any of it.
Nope.
And look where the Eagles now. Yes, that you can poke holes in some of the situations that they've got going on. Maybe the Steel fans out there they're trash. They got Kenny Pickett, but they've been very successful. They've won a lot of games and they've had some deep playoff runs, and they've been to a Super Bowl recently. So that's the thing that I like is that I feel like I would never Colbert did some incredible things for the Steelers. I can't criticize that legacy, but what I can say, I feel like there's a bigger energy and an urgency, and as you say, it's controlled aggression, and it's kind of like the Mike Tomlin. I don't want to have to tell. I want to pull them back, not have to tell them to sick them. Right?
Yes.
I don't think you got to tell them I can't sick them.
I've been so. In the past, this year, if the guy is there at 20, and there's somebody who wants the trade up for that pick, I could see the Steelers easily moving back. Something they did one time under Colbert, and that netted them Casey Hampton. So it definitely worked out. But, it's now I just feel like there's no limitations on what they can do. And,
totally.
You had Colbert, you had the first half of his career, and then you had the second half. And the first half was much different. Then times started to change. I mean, I criticized the Rams when they made the trade for Stafford, and then they brought in OBJ and all those things. And they won the Super Bowl. And then I sit back and I'm like, well, in the modern day, in the past, you'd have killed yourself for 5 years. It'd have took you 5 years to recover going all in. Not anymore. Couple of years, and you're right back in it. If you're smart, and you got to trust this front office. That's why I've been saying, I think Andy Weidel deserves more credit than he's getting.
Yeah.
We're all about King Khan and the con artist, and I love Khan. But we know Khan is a numbers guy. But when you're looking at talent evaluation, when you're looking at contacts around the league, Khan was behind Colbert. So there's no way that Khan has all these contacts. Yeah. Weidel is the contact guy. He's the guy that could get the guys in the front offices to pick up the phone and talk. Because Colbert had a history. If you did a deal with the Steelers, you probably got fleeced. He only did deals that benefited the Steelers big time. Whereas I think Khan and Weidel's like, we'll give a little bit here, we'll take a little bit over here. It's got to go both ways.
Yeah.
And I think that we're seeing that, and Weidel is so important that the Steelers have got to do something to lock him down. You can have co-general managers and let Khan be the numbers guy and let Weidel be the talent evaluator. Because I think that if we lose Weidel, we'll lose some of these connections.
Yeah, I think that I'm hopeful that this isn't time where the Steelers have thought about this, and in giving Khan the job over other people, that was kind of we're pairing you guys together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, they need to go after that Super Bowl. We want them obviously to go after that Super Bowl, but I think that Super Bowl is huge on both of those gentlemen's resumes as well. I think the other thing that is interesting as well is then how this plays out toward the draft, because the Steelers did trade a number one draft pick very early. There's a lot being made of their number one draft picks over the last few years, that have not worked out. Now, Kenny Pickett's been put in that bucket. Kenny Pickett could still work out to be a decent backup in this league, but not in Pittsburgh. Yeah. But that's the Steelers' choice.
4 out of 5.
I know.
You can say, I like Terrell Edmonds. You know this, and you do.
Yeah, I did too.
But they're calling him. Was he first round? It's debatable.
Statistically, he was.
Yeah, but let's say if you count him as a first round hit, it's 3 out of 5 he missed. If you don't think Edmonds is a hit, it's 4 out of 5 his last one's missed. So,
and we're saying what the fifth hit. We're saying the hit in that group is Najee Harris, which not everybody is sold on.
Well, I was considering. I think Harris, in my opinion, had early second value. I think he was overdrafted. I like Harris, but I still think he was second round because he doesn't have that burst that you want in a first round.
I would have loved to have seen.
My hit for me was Minka Fitzpatrick. They traded to get a sure thing. So this is what I'm saying. We was talking last night. Everybody's like, well, they can't trade their first round pick to get a hook. I'm like, well, he's proven. It's either proven production versus potential.
Yep.
I'll take the proven production if the guy's a star.
The only thing about Ayuk, I don't know whether I'd trade a first for him. I'm not saying I completely agree. You can trade your first.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether I would trade a first for him. I'm not McLaurin. I trade a first for AJ Brown.
Well, here's the thing. McLaurin is 2 years older than a Cook.
I know.
He's 28 and a Cook is 26. And then Brown, I think, is around 28.
Yeah.
But last year, I've always been a big AJ Brown fan. But last year, there was some tension between him and Hurts and the offense. And towards the end of the year, they wasn't the same connection. So when I start seeing that concerns me.
Oh, totally. Totally. I think, I like Ayuk in that I think he's got really good speed. I like his blocking ability. He's a very talented guy. I think if you're pure receiver and route runner, I think Terry McLaurin is I think he's better there. But yeah,
McLaurin's a heck of a route runner. Yeah.
But then I also kind of sit down like, well, if you're going to use at that point, you're saying the Steelers are using a first on a wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
At that point, because you're trading for that, right? Because of the way, like the logic, and I completely agree on the trade for Minka Fitzpatrick. So if you thank you very much. If you think of it in that way, then why wouldn't you trade up to try and get one of the top 3 wide receivers in the draft as well, right? So I think that's where it's kind of an interesting. Obviously, like anything in life, there's opportunity cost, there's cost benefit for doing everything. So the Steelers have to work out whether, and that's what I loved about the Fields move, because the Fields move, they let that market play itself out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But they also hit this like equilibrium, like I said, the whole classic economics of supply and demand. Because if they'd waited till the draft, right, until day 2, and the Bears could have done that. But I mean, this just shows some of the maturity that's going on in the Bears front office at the moment.
One thing you said that I want to ask is, you said trade up to get one of the receivers in the first round.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we know, just like quarterbacks, there's probably going to be 5 or 6. I can see it happen. Receivers taken in the first round. And I can also see maybe at least 2, if not 3 of them not paying out.
There's one name that I think, and it's not Marvin Harrison Jr., there is one name that I'm willing to take that punt on.
Who is it?
Romeo Odunze.
So you think that you would trade up for him?
Yep.
Yes. I mean,
I'd trade up as far as top 8. I'd trade up as top 8.
Yeah, he's a stud. But here's what I'm saying. It's just like with quarterbacks. The odds of the quarterbacks missing are even worse.
Yeah.
As we know, if there's, say, 6, probably only 2 of them will be a star.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. And so what I'm saying is, if you're trading for a proven production, you are trading the first round, but you know what you're getting. Yeah. It's not a guess. Because so many of the guys, when they come from college, I can't remember who the receiver was. I was just watching some of his stuff the other day. Dang nabbit. But he can't get his second foot down.
Which team?
See, I was just watching it, and I kept seeing how many touchdowns he missed because he couldn't get his second foot down.
Yeah.
But he was killer in college. So that's something he's going to have to work on. It might have been Olave.
Oh, yeah.
But if you go back, he's missed 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Oh, I trade a first round pick for Olave in 3 seconds.
He's a great route runner. But I can't remember if it was him or not, but I couldn't believe that as good as this guy was, 3 or 4 times in the videos, he couldn't get his other foot down, which you see guys do that all the time. So that's what I'm saying. It's like some guys are great in college and they're not quite the same in the pros.
No, totally. I just think the talent of Romeo Odunze, and then I think of him at the combine, staying back, doing extra drills, and doing it until he got it right. And I just, man, that guy wants to work, right? That guy's comfortable in the uncomfortable, wants to do the routine things routinely. Like, we can go on about Tomlinisms, right? But I just think, I do have a high grade on him. I think to me, he's the second best wide receiver in this draft, behind Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think it's closer than what people. I know a lot of people like Malik Neighbors. I have concerns about how well he'll translate to the NFL. But I think Odunze is just a beast. I think he's an absolute beast. So I think the other thing, the other move, I asked you which move I like the most, or which move you like the most, sorry. The move that I like the most, it's hard not to say Patrick Queen, but you've said Patrick Queen, so I'm not going to argue them. I think Deshaun Elliott, which is what we first talked about last week when we did our show where we recorded all the content that we put out, ended up being from Friday to Wednesday because of all the news that Omar Khan did instead of being
every day
shows throughout the weekend. And the channel's been amazing, and the support from the subs and the listeners and those in the live chat's been incredible. Been one of the best months. It's actually been the best month of the show, the channel ever, in some of the views and the watch hours and all that. And that's a massive shout out to the TDU community. But the move I like the most that we talked about is, and we thank Omar Khan too for giving us things to talk about. But the move I said is Deshaun Elliott. I love this because it puts Minka back when Minka can play well. I don't know. Did you see his press conference, Shannon? Did you see Deshaun Elliott's?
Yeah, I got to see parts of it, highlights.
Starts off by happy birthday to Mike Tomlin. No one else did that when they arrived that day. Then he, first thing question of why you want to play for this franchise, turns around, taps the logo, references the Ravens situation just like Patrick Queen. Talks about wanting to hit blokes, do whatever he needs to do to make the team and make an impact. Pumped to be there. Like, do you know what he had to me? He had when Juju had that really positive energy about being a Steeler?
Yeah.
Like, put it aside the TikTok, he had pride in the jersey that you've got on right now, right? I don't want to crinkle mine in the bag, but on the flight. But he had that energy because at the end of the press conference, someone said to him, have you already talked about how you'd be schemed? And he goes, bro, I think he said, I might get a word wrong here, but he's like, bro, it's like, I'm just so happy to be here. We'll figure all that out later. I've literally been here and done my medical. I haven't even had time to call anyone.
Yeah.
And he had this big smile on his face and this big grin. And I was like, Tomlin is going to like this guy. This guy is going to do some good things. I can't wait to see what number. I haven't seen what number he's going to wear.
No, I haven't heard him say. I haven't.
So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, he was the one that had that big helmet hit on Patrick Mahomes, the cracked helmet.
Where the piece of helmet flew off, yeah. Did you see where he did an interview after that press conference? And they said, well, where do you like to play? He said, in the box. I want to be around the box. Put me in the box. See, that's what they missed last year.
Well, you know what he said earlier on the press conference, just to support that.
Mhm.
He said, they're like, why, after he did the logo thing, they're like, why? And he talks about like the whole Ravens, you're not a Raven or a Steeler until you win.
Mhm.
And then they said, but what excites you about joining Pittsburgh Steelers? And he goes, this is real football.
Yeah.
He's like, AFC North is real football. Some of the league, it's a bit different. It's different. This is real football. This is old. He said something like, it's not old school, but a term that was like that. And then he said, and it's about hitting people. And I'm like, thank God we have a safety that is young,
Exactly.
that is fast.
Yeah.
There's 210-pound plus. I mean, he used like 210 on
Yeah.
the point. But if it's fast, I don't care. That wants to freaking hit someone. Like, thank the Lord. Like,
Yeah.
seriously. And next to Patrick Queen, and they played together before at the Ravens. I think they had a
Mhm.
year together, a year or two. Yes, please. And he played very well at Texas. Because the thing when you play at Texas in the secondary,
He's All-American. Yeah.
but the way that like the Texas Longhorns use their safeties, they are very versatile. Like there is someone that's often they use a line, like they have generally a box safety that's more of like a fast linebacker, but then they move their safeties around. And because they haven't had the best teams in the last 5 to 10 years, any white guy that's talented, it's a bit like what you and I talked about with Duggar from the Patriots. I feel like you've got to be a really versatile safety in the way that you're schemed around. And it's a lot of like almost, obviously teams play man and they play zone, but it's very man to man. Like we're putting our best player, in the secondary on their best player. We're putting a guy on a tight end if they're going to him, or the bigger wide receivers. So I just think that move, like that's the shrewd move that happens. That we're not going to. It might not show up on the stat sheet or the win column until like week 6 or week 7 or week 8, middle of the season. And you look back and you're like, or he makes a big hit in the playoff, like the first round of the playoffs or the last week of the season to make the playoffs if things don't, fully go their way. And you're like, man, I'm glad we brought that guy in. Man, we brought that guy in.
Well, you brought up Duggar, and who I was very high on.
Me too.
And, when I seen Elliott, I started looking at his numbers and where all he took snaps at. He took snaps at all 3 positions: free safety, strong safety, and slot. So again, like Duggar, he could play. You can move him around. You can move Minka around. We know Kazee is somebody you can move. And I'm sure there's going to be another safety in there. They might bring back Rowe for that matter, because Eric Rowe is still a very intelligent, smart player who's older, doesn't need to start, but he's a great guy to come off the bench.
Well, I tell you, I completely agree with all of that. Do you know what though? And I know that I'm just like you're on the Frazier hype train. I'm on the James Williams out of Miami, the massive safety.
Well, exactly.
Imagine having him,
and he's like another linebacker.
But imagine having between Queen and Deshaun Elliott, the heavy sets you can do against tight ends and big receivers, and because you've got Queen and because you've got Deshaun Elliott, you've got the luxury of being the Steelers of figuring out, like he wants to play safety. He said that certain, depending on who's drafting, someone will try and make him a linebacker at his height. But I just think slotting between, you can figure out where to play him best, and you can make him the Swiss Army knife of the defense at that point in time. Like, and I just think to myself, and that helps you if you want to play Deshaun in the slot and you want to go heavy. Like,
and with the whole tight end thing that everybody's wanting to exploit teams, because that's still a weakness for a lot of defenses.
Yeah,
I still see Terrell Edmonds is out there, guys. I mean, I can't help it. I love the dude. I love what he helped, because the Steelers were just decimated and destroyed against tight ends for years. And he come in and he took care of that. And people they took it for granted.
Yeah.
But, he's still out there. Whoever gets him is going to get a quality player, a quality person, and probably for a steal.
That's it. I think it's been really, really interesting to see how that sort of progresses and develops in terms of like how the Steelers put those safeties together, the 3 safety rotation, and solidify the defense in that way. I guess you and I have talked a lot about like mid-round linebackers. There's no real linebacker that's got a first-round grade on them. We talked I think there's some comments that we're both engaged in one of the threads on with the listeners on one of the videos that we did around Patrick Queen. But to me, I still think a linebacker in round 3, especially when you've got 2 picks, and depending on where a guy like Junior Colson's falling, I still think that's a need, because I still think when you've got Holcomb injury concern, you've got Quan, they've got to decide if they're actually going to bring him back. Landon Roberts is great, but he's not getting any younger. I don't think Mark Robinson's really panning out. So I kind of look at it and I'm like, I still would love to bring in some youth. I'd love to bring in someone on a rookie contract that can learn from a Landon Roberts and Patrick Queen, and you groom it, because the Steelers haven't done well rounds 3 to 5, like consistently year in, year out over the last decade. And that is a real weakness when you compare that to teams that are making Super Bowls. They can trade the top guys, as we started out the show talking about, because they've got mid-round talent that they've developed, or that it was untapped talent in that people had a lower grade on them than what they actually could do when they transitioned well to the pros. So to me, that's like the foundation of your team, and the Steelers have been actually very weak in that area, which is why I think, and we've also been weak in middle linebackers. So I think, can we try and solve both problems together?
But Khan and Waddle, just based on last year, I'm very confident they're going to change that. And I would like to see, as you say, I don't know if you've been doing any mocks, but I only do it when I'm asked.
Do you know why I haven't done any mocks? I haven't done any mocks since the last week.
But Tate was like, well, you need to do a mock for the show last night. So I did a few. And if a lot of them fall pretty close to what I think is going to happen, especially first round. And I kept like, in the second round, it was so hard to pass on a guy like Peyton Wilson.
Yeah.
And in the third, I had an opportunity for Colson, for Trotter. There's just so many guys where I was like, man, the Steelers really need one of these guys.
Yeah.
So a couple of times I pulled the trigger, because they really do. They got to get that center. They got to get that next young guy to solidify the center. And also, you get that an inside linebacker to go next to Patrick Queen. You got something. The middle of the line, you really got something there.
But that is why that's why I've not done a mock. It's because of center. Because I feel like you're forced into picking a center right now unless someone really good falls. And I didn't know. Did Brian Allen from the Rams end up signing anywhere? I don't like him. I think he's too small. But I didn't know whether he signed anywhere. But
I can't remember.
I don't know if he had. He hadn't going into Monday my time in Australia, so Sunday for you guys. And I haven't seen anything pop up this week. But
I don't think so. No.
But he and Connor Williams are still out there, and I kind of.
But I don't want a bridge guy.
I don't want a bridge guy. But I'm just saying,
we keep getting these bridge guys. They got to get one of them top 3 dudes. If they do, I think any of them 3 can be the guy.
Well, I was going to say I want Connor Williams there, and then you've got the ability to work out how is the draft falling for you, and then you can work out whether you are, let's say if JPJ goes at 16 or 17, because a lot of people have him going to the Seahawks or the Jags, then you can go, is there a trade partner we can go back to? I think the Eagles are picking 23, or you can go back to 23 or 25 and get Frazier and get something else, right? Because you're going to be passing up, because you're going to have to move up in the second, because you're going to need a right tackle. Like, people going on and on about center. I know you need someone to snap the ball to the quarterback, but we also need a right tackle. Right tackle is definitely still a need. And then, so you move back there, and then you've got more picks to say to move up to get the tackle or to get the other players. But at the same time, if that trade value is not, doesn't seem like it's as worth it to get Frazier there, or you're not getting the capital you want for moving back in the draft, moving from that 20 into the mid 20 picks, then you might have to go, well, you know what, we're not going to do this. We're going to pick the BPA or BPA like a right tackle in that instance. And instead, and you can still might trade back a spot or 2. And instead, we're going to have to move up and we're going to have to go get Cedric Van Pran, at pick 36 or 37 or 38 to make sure we go grab the guy. But at least then they've got a mechanism. If the next person happened to pick when there's two guys flying off the board. Cedric Van Pran happened to go off the board. I see it more as an insurance policy, not where I want it to go. Like, I guess that's what I'm saying is that I'm the thing that I'm fearing right now is we have two needs on the O-line. And I know there's a lot of good tackles right now in the draft, but there's a lot of good tackles that played left tackle at college because I wanted their value going up, not necessarily proven at right tackle. The best proven tackles to me at right tackle would be Fuaga or it's Mims. And Fuaga ain't going to be there probably at 20 unless you move up to get him.
No, I wish.
And I think Fuaga's a better product. I got panned for this by someone, I think, when I came on Pumpy Breaks, but I think Fuaga's a better prospect than Broderick Jones. I think one of the boys gave me a timeout or a fine for saying that. But
they might have.
I think they did. I think that's what it was. But Mims is the best right tackle in this draft. And he might not be there at 20 because there's rumors the Bengals really like the look of him, right? So
yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I don't see a right tackle out there in free agency that I like better at right tackle than what I do Connor Williams at center. So that's why I'd rather have Connor Williams. I'd rather get Cedric Van Pran and get a top right tackle. And then if you can somehow get Mims, even if you got to trade up a couple of spots and use a fourth or use a pick next year for all intents and purposes. And that's what I think they should be doing. And I say that the whole time with Justin Fields is do not trade a 24 pick. Trade a 2025 pick. And then everyone comes out and goes, oh, it's crazy that Khan did it for a 25 pick. It is crazy that he did it for such a lowly pick that could move from a 6 to a 4.
Yeah.
But I've been saying since January, do not trade a 2024 pick. So
they need him. They need every pick this year so bad.
And that's my point is that like,
but
they have to get Mims. I'm worried if they don't get Mims, I don't see a solution that I'm 100% in on at right tackle. And I think that is going to be a problem in the Arthur Smith offense. That's all.
Well, I'm getting two guys really sticking out to me. Fiontu.
Fatanu
from Washington.
Yep.
They say he can play like about any position.
Yep.
But the guy is so smooth. His feet, he's so nimble. And Arthur Smith does a lot of wide zone, a lot of zone.
Sure.
You know, he's not so much the power player, but he's very. I mean, you watch him; he gets low and he goes up on his blocks. He actually gets that leverage underneath. And I really love his quickness and how smooth of an operator he is. And then if you go into the second or third round, I like Morgan from Arizona. I think he's in most drafts, he would be early to mid second round. And in this draft, he's going to be late second or third round.
And then you get to my guy later in the third in Christian Jones out of Texas.
Well, yeah, and you're very familiar with him. I'm not. But what I'm saying is I just think that I just don't want another year. I mean, we got to get the center. To me, that's priority.
And he's the best.
But
it is the
I
best center class
can't
in a
see
while.
Dan Moore again. Not as a starter. And that's what I'm afraid, because everybody says the Steelers like him better than you do. Well, I mean, they got to see the numbers. He was the lowest graded starting tackle last year in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not good.
No. But you bring up Morgan. He's probably the guy that I like the most out of that first round.
He's very physical.
I feel like he's more agile than people give him credit for as well. Like,
I guess I just noticed the power. I mean, he's a brute.
Well, he's 6'7".
Yeah.
I think he's 6'7".
But he's got violent hands.
He's got big hands too. I think
he jolts people. Yeah.
I think he had 34-inch hands. Oh, no, 34-inch arms.
34-inch hands. That's some big hands. Even like a pound.
I love that. Can you imagine? That would be hilarious. He'd just be able to just put like one arm with the hand and just like block the whole chest. That'd be very, very funny. Oh, that's a real good moment there. I want to bring up, we weren't ignoring your live chat, so if anyone throwing their questions, the last sort of 15, 20 minutes of the show, but I love the thing that Jed Devils brought up here, and that Khan signed a lot of guys to bring a positive culture change. I mean, I know it's a bit of a, I would use an Australian term, I won't use it, YouTube might not like it, it's not necessarily kid-friendly, but let's just say, people might find Russell Wilson corny, I guess, in the way that or really like over the top. But man, the guy looks he does look really locked in. You can't fault him for it. He does look really locked in. He looked really fit in that videotape throwing the ball. And I gotta say, and I know it's not throwing the ball at game speed, but one of those balls, and I know it's a highlight, they've clipped the best of what he's done in that session. That had way more zip than what I've seen Kenny Pickett throw a ball at. And all Mason Rudolph, can I just say that? It just looked like, I felt like we had a bona fide starter actually throwing the ball.
Oh, he's always had a big arm.
That just you could tell it was like the velocity, right? Because it just came and it carried. There was no at the end of the throw. And it was, I think, I tried to work it out because they didn't have all the markings marked out, but I think it was a 40-yard throw, that the particular one I'm looking at. I haven't seen a zip on the ball since Ben 2017 like that. I just haven't.
They were talking on the Pat McAfee show that he went with a quarterback guru, a specialist, and he worked with him in the offseason. He's been working with him, and he's changed his mechanics.
I was going to say, because he's
putting more torque, upper body torque, and you see it. It's helping his accuracy
because his arm isn't actually arm isn't going back as far, but you're seeing
torque. His torque.
Yeah,
and you're seeing more velocity, and they said it's helping his accuracy too. So that shows serious commitment for a guy who's 36 years old, 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl participant. I mean, he's not ready to hang him up. Let's put it that way.
No, 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, isn't it? Isn't that what we signed him up for?
It might have been. I know he won one, but I can't remember.
We've signed him up. He wanted to have. He said.
Oh yes. He
wanted the 2 Super Bowls in 4 years. That's what we're signing up for, everyone. It's going to be party town. It is Super Bowl City. That's what it's going to be.
But I honestly, I'd like to see him have a good year, and because he needs it for his career and his legacy, and but I want to see them work in Fields in certain packages, take advantage of having all that talent. You don't want him just standing on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out who you're going to pay the big money to next year. So, Fields is over a decade younger than Russell. And if he can, I was on last night on Pump Your Brakes, Fields has always been the man. And he's always had all that pressure. And he, in college, and he comes to the pros and he's on a bad team, which happens. And I think the pressure and I think his confidence suffered a little bit. The one year he had all them rushing yards, and then the next year they're saying, stay in the pocket. So, I mean, all them mixed messages, system fit matters.
Yep.
And I think that if Fields could show that he could be a good fit in this system, I would like to see him be the future more than I would Russ because in 4 years he's going to be 40. And but regardless, we want the best guy. So, and at the very least, Wilson can hopefully be a good role model example for Fields to learn. You think of the guys who learned. Somebody mentioned Jordan Love. He was behind Aaron Rodgers.
I wanted them to go get him after Ben. I'm really high on Jordan Love. I always have been.
Well, he looked good last year. He really did.
I think, I don't know, for me, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer. And I want to, and then we'll talk about it more when we get closer to the time period. But, I talked recently, remember a couple of weeks ago, I said to you that, J Devils brought exactly that. Remember I said to you, decline the 5th year option for Najee and sign him to a 2-year deal, roughly 11 or 12 million, right? Within and 2 of that million being incentives. And J Devils says exactly. I completely agree. And this is what I'm leading into. I think you decline the 5th year option if you got Russ on that last year and you say, Justin, we're going to sign you for backup money that first year, but then you're getting a heap of guaranteed money. And then the second year after Russ's contract expires, we're upping you to NFL level standards. So you can, when Russ leaves, you can have that cap number. Yeah. But we turn it into guaranteed salary. And by then the cap's going to be like 300 million, which again, I've been proven right. I said 2 years ago that the cap would be almost 250 million within 2 years. And it is. I think it's what, 247. So, GM Matty over here is enjoying that. But I just think that there's more, like, people feel very much he's not the guy, or you're doing the 5th year option, you're signing up for 25 million. But that's not how Khan and Lytle operate. Khan and Lytle, people are very black and white out there, and I mean that in terms of the way that they see things, in terms of like, it's either this or it's binary. It's either this or it's that. But the world is like, it's a mix of gray. You got to be, and that's why I love that I feel like your theme for the offseason so far has been outside the box thinking.
Yep.
And that's what we've seen, and that's what's exciting. But I did have something that I almost put a show out on the video with. I put a video out on the channel with very early my time. I need my coffee. My body's all over the place with time zones. But I want to put it out, and then show, hey, Fuzzy Monkey, what's up? Fuzzy Monkey live chat. But okay. How tall is Mike Tomlin meant to be?
How tall?
Yeah.
I always thought Tomlin was around 6 foot.
So I've seen 5'9", I've seen 5'10", I've seen 5'11". I've not seen anything higher than 5'11", right? But even if he's 6 foot, did you see the highlight of him having the happy birthday photo with Patrick Queen and Russell Wilson?
Yes.
And did you see the video, not just the picture?
I think I've just seen the picture.
The video proves it more. How tall is Russell Wilson? Because Russell Wilson looks like he's barely 5'9" in that photo.
No, I think he's listed at 5'10", I think.
Like, how does he see over the offensive? I was watching the clip and I'm like, because there are some things that say Russell Wilson's over 5'11". Man, I know Mike Tomlin had like some decent heels in the sneakers he was wearing, but like Russell Wilson is a lot shorter than Mike Tomlin. A lot shorter than Mike Tomlin. Like the gap is like.
Well, there's a lot of that. Like I said, I'd been near close range proximity with Hines Ward, Jerome Bettis, Troy, and Deshaun Townsend, I think it was. And everybody was supposed to be within an inch or two of each other. And I'm 5'9", and we're all about the same. So, and so I know what you're saying when you seen that in that picture, Tomlin looked 2-3 inches taller than him.
Easily.
Yeah.
And then, but then I was like, well, how tall is Patrick Queen? Because Patrick Queen wasn't that much bigger than either of them either. And I'm like, what's going on?
Well, and Harrison, if you ever looked at Harrison, and another one was Casey Hampton. I mean, the dude was barely 6 foot if he was. Now, he weighed
I don't know what it was. I was kind of like, but to me, it more looked like Mike Tomlin had grown. It was really funny in that way. I'm like, as he had some back fusions or something, and like as they fused the spine and straightened it out, he looks, because Patrick Queen's meant to be 183, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mike Tomlin ain't 183. I had this moment. I'm like, I almost put the video out. It was going to be if we got the shortest starting quarterback in the league. Right? It just cracked me up. I was just like, what is this? Like,
you may not be old enough to remember Doug Flutie.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah, Doug Flutie, and he was listed 5'9", which I don't think he was. But he would talk about it. Drew Brees was actually a little under 6 foot too, even though they listed him at 6 foot. But those guys have to find throwing lanes to see their receivers downfield. They cannot see over the offensive line or the defensive line.
Throws 80% of Kyler Murray's throws are like, I think I read the year before he got injured, were an average of 26 yards behind the line of scrimmage when he went and scrambled back there and when he did like rollouts. Like, it's insane. Like you better have an arm, because like you're minus 26 yards before you get started.
But I always say this, when you have a shorter quarterback, you need taller receivers.
Yes.
Now there's two reasons. And why I think that they got Pickens, and I think they're looking for other tall receivers. And the reason why is because when you're throwing to clear that defensive line, the ball's going at an upward trajectory.
Yep.
So your receivers are going to have to catch a lot of balls high, or leave their feet to go up and get it. And so you don't want a bunch of Smurfs, as they used to call the Washington. Well, it was the Redskins back then.
Yeah.
They had the fun bunch and all that, but all them guys were mighty mites. They were shorter receivers, and so you want to have them tall guys. So I think that's the guys that the Steelers are really looking at in this draft.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's and that's again why I reckon Freemo's in for a massive year. I reckon Freemo's in for a huge season.
Will he be the best tight end that Russell Wilson's played with? Because Jimmy Graham was, he was older.
Well, Fant got moved in the trade with him.
Fant's kind of been a disappointment, though.
They've got Colby Parkinson, don't they? Seahawks. I don't know whether he there would overlap.
See, I don't remember either. I don't remember Russell
overlap with Russell Wilson, but he's a decent.
But I don't remember.
He just got paid. He just got paid some money.
Wilson having a big time tight end, and I think he might have one. And see, also with Darnell Washington being 6'7", that could really benefit Wilson.
You know what I think is going to benefit as well? Because you look at Russell Wilson at the start with remember when Mark Robinson was playing behind Marshawn Lynch?
Yeah.
Connor Haywood, Najee Harris.
Yeah.
And he had to dinner with Connor more because Cam probably bought Connor. But I think Connor Haywood could do very well out of this offense. But then I also saw that the Steelers are now looking at fullbacks. So I'm like, well then, Connor Haywood is a fullback. He's not a tight end. He's a fullback. I'm sick of hearing that one. So it's kind of interesting. But J Devil also says Tomlin got a height boost with his Jordans. Well, that's what I sat there. I got the image and I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, if you get the inch of the heel of the Jordans and then we give you the height of this, but I'm even still there is a gap between Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin. I reckon Russell Wilson's 177 centimeters, which is what I think that is actually 5'9", 5'10", 5'9", 5'10". But yeah, I don't know. It just cracked me up. I was just like, this is a bit funny. Anything else that you wanted to before we wrap up the show, Shannon? Is there anything else that you're finding throughout this week, or that you think that Steel fans are should be thinking about as we head into the draft? Because I feel like we've had this week of free agency, or it's more like been 2 to 2.5 weeks of free agency, and now we're getting to go back into the draft content. I feel like we had to just park all it. Now we're moving back in. Now we know where the needs are. We know where people. Some people are going to trade up, trade back, all those different things. Is there anything that you kind of the keen to see the Steelers do over the next few weeks, or the Steel fans should be thinking about as we get through that draft process? There could still be more free agents signed as people progress through medicals. There's a lot of free agents that won't have passed medicals. I think that's why you haven't seen Connor Williams sign anywhere. Although knowing my luck, as soon as we'll finish this show, it'll say he's signed with some other team, and there we go. But that's what happened with Devin White when we spoke about Devin White on the linebacker show. But yeah, any sort of things that you think of, sort of these narratives that, the Steeler fan base needs to be thinking about over the next, couple of weeks?
Well, we're into the pro days, and the Steelers have been very active. They know what they're looking for, and they send the big brass to the Georgia and the Alabama and the Texas, and then they send, a positional coach here and there for the guy they're looking at. So we're going to be really getting into the draft more and more, because the free agency's already slowed down. And after this week, it's going to just be, the second wave. So, But the one thing I really wanted to point out, and I did a little bit last night, to me, Arthur Smith's offense, the more I watch it, Wilson doesn't like to throw across the middle. And we were concerned because Pickett didn't either. Pickett really didn't have a lot of opportunities. But Justin Fields is now, it's going to be Wilson and Fields.
Yep.
They like to do a lot of outside zone runs. They just imagine if they work packages in with Fields, and Wilson can do it too.
Yeah.
Is fake the handoff. I was saying it last night to Joey C. Fake the handoff. Warren is a killer, man. It don't matter who he's blocking. He depletes guys. The quarterback, Wilson or Fields, keeps the ball. Let's whoever, whether it's Harris or Warren, lead around the end, and they're going to deplete somebody. And then you have a big play. It's going to keep teams from trying to stack against that run. And then that's going to open up that play action, which both guys are accomplished in play action and can throw the deep ball. So Pickens should be able to feast, and whoever else they bring in. I just see, because both guys are 1 and 2 for holding the ball the longest. Both of them averaged over 3 seconds per pass attempt.
Yeah.
Behind our line, they're going to get killed. But that's why they got to get the center and they got to improve tackle. But if they do, they also have been the most sacked quarterbacks over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But now Arthur Smith's offense is going to dictate what they're supposed to do.
True.
When you do that play action, then you got to get rid of the ball. And he will scheme guys into open areas, something that Matt Canada was incapable of doing. So I'm serious. So I think everybody needs to be encouraged, because the two weaknesses that we know, holding the ball too long, getting sacked, and some turnovers, hopefully in this offense, it's almost, I don't want to say it's simplistic, but it does take some of the,
let's use the word straightforward, because
it takes some of the progression part out. It's not like Ben loved to take the shotgun snap 5 wide and drop back, and he would find somebody.
Yeah.
That's not their strength. What they can do, if they drop back and they don't see what they want, immediately that the 1 or 2 routes is covered, then they can take off. They got that athletic ability to do that. So I just see so much potential with the new quarterback position being a good fit for Arthur Smith's offense.
I love it. At least maybe 2 questions to close out the show. Do you think they should give Justin Fields the number 1 jersey?
Yes.
Yep, they're going to move on
in a heartbeat.
Gary Anderson.
I think I like the single digits. I like a guy because they come in, they want their own number.
Yep.
I mean, if it's retired, that's one thing, but it's not. It's not. So give him the number; he'll feel comfortable. If you're going to try to enter into contract negotiations later, that's a good thing. You say, okay, we give you your number. We respected you enough to give you your number. I don't see any disrespect to anybody by giving him number 1.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So my final question, as the topic of the show, is obviously the draft's to come, but from where we needed to get to date, from where the Steelers needed to get to with all the offseason, and we've already had a draft of Omar Khan, so we kind of know. Well, I mean, we don't know if we know what to expect, but we know to expect that it's going to be wild, and he'll do whatever he can to make sure the Steelers end up a more
whatever's necessary
as a result. Yeah. Has he done enough to get the Steelers some playoff wins in 2024?
I really can't answer that till we see the draft.
Yep. But I mean, like, if you think about it like a part 1 and part 2, part 1 being the main part of free agency, part 2 being the draft. Has he done enough in part 1?
I think that he's had a very strong start to this free agency. I don't think you could ask for more. There was some receivers that I would have liked for him to maybe looked at, but if his plan all along was to get a guy like Van Jefferson and then shoot for one of these guys that we're talking about maybe trading for, depending on the cost, and then draft one, it's such a good draft for receivers. I think he's right in line. I really didn't want a lot of these centers that everybody wanted, because what you're going to do, you're going to pay for a guy and it's going to keep whoever their rookie is they get. It's going to keep him on the bench or make them lackadaisical about going after one of them rookies, and they don't get none of them. And then you're stuck with that veteran. And they're like, well, we got Williams or we got Allen or whoever. I don't want that. I want a guy that can grow with this. See, that's the one thing about Wilson starting being the veteran that he is. This is going to be an incredibly young offense. When if they have a rookie receiver, a rookie center, maybe a rookie tackle, It's going to be a very young offense. So I'd like to see them grow together, because usually when that happens, 2 or 3 years in, or you're in the championship game.
That's true. Very, very good. True. Well, it has been great to talk with you, my good friend. Well, on a live show, it's been a little while since we've done a live. We will get back to doing those lives, just generally across the channel for everyone listening, whether it's listening live right now or is listening to the show after it is finished. I want to thank the live chat as well, Jer, George Teston, Fuzzy Monkey. You guys in the comments there. I know there are other people that have been watching live throughout the whole way through, or have tapped in at different times throughout the show. So I want to thank you all there. It's been exciting. Channel's going strength to strength. We're really excited for it to get back into some draft content. I think, I agree with Shannon and everything you said around the playoff side of things, in terms of what Khan's done now. It is going to be a young team, but you know what? Like, there's a lot of, as we've seen it with college as well, there's a lot of players that have had these extra years of eligibility with COVID that are coming out very, very experienced. And you know what? I like, the worst thing in life is when people don't try. At least you feel like they're trying. So with that, we're going to close out the show. I'm Matty P with Shannon White. As always, go Steelers.